Last year we did over $1 billion in new loans.
Half of my career I've been an entrepreneur, owned my own businesses, and then the other half I have some corporate experience too.
I think I actually learned a lot more in the failure than I did any of the successes.
But the cool thing about where the market is right now is...
Okay, I am Paul Hanson with Bye Bye House, and this is our first episode of a Realty Talk. Our intention is to talk through all things resi, real estate. Got Steve, I'll let everybody else introduce themselves, and Suzanne. 3 different perspectives on resi and real estate and all other things. You know, we're going to have a great lineup this year of guests that will have fun and interesting stories about their experience in real estate as well. But our intention is just to provide really unique information about what we're seeing as we run the businesses that we prospectively run, you know, and hopefully have some fun along the way. So let's start with Steve. I mean, your background and
Sure.
how we ended up where we are today.
Yeah, so going way back, I grew up in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which is kind of in the middle of the Berkshires. Youngest of 7, 10 years between oldest and youngest, so it was pretty tightly packed. You know, spent probably the first third of my career in finance, from investment banking and also finance at companies, GE and Morgan Stanley. Spent about a third of my career running a small public home building company. I was a regional builder. And then come 2007, 2008, there wasn't really much home building going on. So took a year off and just kind of enjoyed life. It was the first break I'd had since I was probably 11 when I had a paper route and was dog walking and shoveling snow and all that good stuff. And, came across the industry of private lending for residential investors and really looked at the space as one which didn't have any institutional capital. The capital was really served by wealthy people who knew intermediaries, brokers that would find borrowers and put the two together. So there was really no reliable capital in the marketplace. And so started out in 2010, did the first loan to, sort of create an institutional entity. And we've been successful in doing that. So last year we did over $1 billion in new loans. We've got about $1.5 billion, little over $1.5 billion outstanding right now. We lend in 30 states. And the vast majority of our borrowers are repeat borrowers. And so we're their bank. We're a lot easier to do business than a bank, a lot friendlier too. It's been a great run and one where we're really providing financing for small residential value-add investors, and they're out changing all of the neighborhoods in their respective markets. So it's great. We're supplying the capital to kind of rebuild the inner cores of cities and neighborhoods. So pretty exciting.
I feel like Steve's pretty modest too about that. I mean, it's a pretty. I think the Center Street's a pretty big deal. I mean, even just last week when we were. We met someone in the field, and he mentioned, "Oh, how do you know Steve? Tell me about Center Street." And he was like, "Gosh, they have such a great reputation, So you've done such an amazing job. I think you're a little modest there."
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly the tone, right? Center Street in the world of investors is known for service, known for a human touch, right, on the whole process of the loan. So yeah, I mean, best in class for sure. I want to go back to, I didn't realize we've known each other for 8 years now, so 7. You're the youngest of 7?
I'm the youngest of 7. Luckily, my parents didn't give up. So.
Yeah. Baby.
So
a couple of Irish twins in there. My 2 older brothers are 363 days apart. So so exciting stuff.
Any real estate background in the family, or anybody else in real estate in the family?
No. My interest was initial interest was really finance. So that's why I went to go work at GE in their one of the businesses in the finance area. Then went back to business school, and then went to go work at Morgan Stanley. And so I was a finance person, but I've always liked residential real estate. When I was at Morgan Stanley, I actually did a couple of high yield offerings for home builders that were, at that time, a lot of them were regional size builders. This was back in '93. And, it's just a fun business. And so the business that we do now, we finance now dirt and turn it into new houses, or we take old houses and turn them into like new houses. It's great. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we'll as we progress in our different episodes and conversations, we'll obviously drill into more of the nitty gritty. But when you think about the way we've all come together, what's been your best experience in lending and brokerage side of the business and the investing side of the business, and what's been your worst experience?
Oh gosh, well, there's a lot of worse experiences. So, our business is really financing people that are going to go add value and go make money. And so we're just providing the part of the money for them to go and do that. And so we try and do that in the most efficient way possible. We try and understand their needs and try and have our business be focused around the needs of our borrowers. And so that's really is the way that we're structured. It's one of the reasons why we do have such a great reputation out there, because we try and do it the borrower's way, not have the borrower do it our way. And so, there's no one success story. It's when you see people and you see the men and women that borrow from us. The most exciting thing obviously is a nice big high-end luxury house, but it's equally as satisfying seeing somebody that's putting homes that are more affordable in areas where they're needed. So it's we do 100 plus loans a month. Last year we did over about 1,100 loans or so. And so each one of those is a story. The vast majority of them are success stories. Which is great. On the downside, we do have people that stumble, and and then we get to see the mess that that we have on our hands, and our job's to go clean up the mess and do what the customer was supposed to do, and go finish the property and go sell it to a consumer.
And I think it's good because I think that's part of what we want to accomplish here is candidly talk about some of those the successes, but also the realities, right? Like I think talking through the realities of real estate in general, the good, the bad, the ugly, and that's kind of what this is all about.
Well, let's pivot to you, Suzanne. So love to hear your Suzanne is the CEO and founder of Innovate Realty, and a really unique story. So love to hear your story and how it all connects in.
Yeah. Steve went way back, so
there's a lot of real estate there.
There's more time. No, I mean, I think it's interesting because, as you mentioned, you had your paper routes and shoveling snow and doing what you did. I mean, even I remember being. I'm also from the East Coast, so I'm a Jersey girl. Whether I don't claim it that much anymore. I don't have the accent, but I am originally from New Jersey, and I remember being at the shore and selling seashells at a very young age.
Wait, you weren't in the Jersey Shore. You were just in the shore.
No, not in the Jersey Shore. Difference. But my pitch wasn't as refined back then. I remember saying 25 cents each or 4 for $1, like no value to get people to buy more. But I got on that path pretty early. I think half of my career I've been an entrepreneur, owned my own businesses, and then the other half I have some corporate experience too, which I think is what does set me apart a little bit. I think that, I started my first business pretty young. I had a marketing company and I launched that at 19. And at one point I had, and it felt like a lot at the time at 19, being kind of a young female in that industry, and having 50 people that that relied on me for their paychecks every week. So I went through that for 4 or 5 years. I eventually got into the mortgage industry, and I ran a mortgage branch in Arizona, and then 2008 came. So pivoted. Things change. I ended up getting involved in real estate. Actually, it started with Trulia. So
tapped out a mortgage for a little bit, but kind of always knew that it was something that I would come back to when the market shifted a little bit. But initially, from that point, I went into working with real estate agents, which is still what I do to this day, and has been quite the journey. But I was coaching and teaching real estate agents how to be successful in real estate from a marketing, using their marketing, using their advertising. How do you take leads? How do you get your brand out there? And then how do you grow a team with that? So, so Trulia eventually sold to Zillow. So I was a part of that Zillow family, and same path, coaching real estate agents and really working with the top 2% across the country. So I started to get a really unique perspective of what it takes to be successful in real estate. And, I got to the point where I was just like, why am I not doing this? I'm teaching people how to grow their business, scale, make money. I think, historically in real estate, and I'll say it, and I know all my fellow agents know what I'm saying, but historically, agents don't always treat their business like it's a business. They don't operate it like it's a business. And again, I think from having a little bit of a corporate background, I have always looked at real estate like a business. And so, I decided to jump in and got into the luxury market here in Orange County. And
as an agent.
As a real estate agent, I figured, I got to do it. I can't be telling these people what to do, and I'm not doing it myself. So I just hit that point where I said, I'm teaching other people how to scale their real estate business, and it just got to the point where I was like, why would I not do that for myself? So I did. So, partnered with a broker, and I met this broker through, he was my client, so I was originally coaching him, partnered, and he had a team of 20 at the time when I joined. We scaled it to 200 agents. And started actually practicing like it was a real business, like it was a real brokerage instead of just operating a team. And was really lucky because we ended up finishing #1 in the state of California in 2021.
Wow.
And in volume and units. And #3 in volume in the country. So just getting started. I think we could talk about our story together, but came across this duo right here and decided that we wanted to create something a little bit different to service the market. So last year ended up starting Innovate Realty, and we have 150 agents right now. And the focus is just helping them do more business with an ever-changing market, right? So now I'm working with agents all day long, and I hope to provide them and bring them the same value that I've brought others in the past, and myself did it myself. So
and that's I think to note. So 150 agents today, but started 9 months ago with 100. Right? So pretty rapid growth. And I think as we made that transition together, I think one thing that we focused on when creating the brokerage was how do we solve for problems in the current market? What do we need to do to be different? And how do we help agents be successful? And if we came with that mindset, and I think the agents felt that and jumped on board right away. So
one thing I've always found in business, and certainly we found it in difficult markets, is you have to be nimble. Something's always going to change, and so businesses are successful long term are always adapting to a changing market and competitors, and that's what we do every day.
Being present versus reactionary, right? So knowing what's changing as it's changing, so you can move.
Sure.
Which is hard. I mean, that's really hard, especially in the businesses that we're all in, right? In lending, in the brokerage world, it's a ever-changing climate. There is no such thing as permanent. It's really
a lot of
tough.
uncontrollables. But What about you, Paul? We got to hear your story.
Yeah, it's tough to follow. Tough act to follow. Both. Yeah, I mean, my story is very basic. I grew up in Utah, a beautiful, childhood, but definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed. I just got through high school, really because got into college because I was an athlete, and but I, very similar to you, at a young age, had always had entrepreneurial ventures. I think my first business was mowing lawns, and then shoveling snow in Utah. And in high school, I actually had a little business where we had real employees and a tax ID, and we were doing irrigation and landscaping work, which really was a fancy way of saying we're digging trenches and putting sod in. But made $0, paid all my friends too much money, and learned a whole lot. But where I cut my teeth was I actually went and sold products door to door in college after my freshman year of college. Needed to make some money to not go into student debt, and so moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and sold alarm systems door to door. Not a great salesperson, not a great entrepreneur, but I worked really hard.
He's really selling himself.
Yes, you've been successful at failing at that.
I have to say, every time you say that you're, not the sharpest tool or not the brightest, I'm like, ooh, what does that say about me, Paul? I think you're pretty smart. So.
Well, I'm specifically referring to back then.
Okay.
So I was very inexperienced, but I think, I worked really hard.
Yeah.
So what I did do was, again, I wasn't the best salesperson, but I memorized the scripting, and I was, fanatical about practicing. And, at the end of a day, when most of the other people in that sales program would go out and get dinner and drinks, I was back studying and, getting up early in the morning and working out. And so I just worked harder, I think, than everybody else. And that's, I think, been kind of the foundation of my entrepreneurial journey. And I've had 3 or 4 other businesses since then. I've had 3 very successful business ventures and transactions, and I've also had a big failure, where I've lost every dollar. And I think I actually learned a lot more, in the failure than I did any of the successes. But all of my businesses have been consumer focused. So we're either taking a product or a service to a consumer in a residential environment. Some of it had direct sales, some of it had, non-direct sales. And I've always been fascinated about these houses. I knocked on hundreds of thousands of doors, and in every market you can imagine: New York City, Texas, in the South, and back here on the West Coast. And one of the things that I've always thought about when I look back is that the major cities in the United States had this big boom of home building in the 50s, 60s, and most of the ownership is tired. Their baby boomers are older, and they have a ton of wealth jammed into those assets. But younger generations, excuse my French, but they're lazy assholes. Like, I'm technically one of them. I'm a millennial. I don't like to identify as one, but we expect the tip top, perfect house, perfect layout. And most of the inventory in the United States, these major cities, is just not that. It's a great house, has great bones, but the inside doesn't have that open floor plan. And, the older generations, like my mom and dad, it had nice hardwood floor, but it's not white oak. And, so that turning of real estate is something that I think we're going to see happen. And we're seeing it now, but it's going to continue happening for the next 20 years. I think statistically we'll see the largest transition of wealth from boomers in single-family real estate to younger generations. And, when we started Buy House, that was essentially our thesis. If we can go in and we can operate a really difficult business, which is construction, basically. If we take an old kind of tired asset and make it new and fresh and appeal to those younger generations, we're creating a lot of value. And so that was really the investment thesis 3-4 years ago. And it's been great, and it's led to a lot of other unique relationships.
New paths.
Yeah, it's a perfect transition into, how we're all sitting here today.
Right.
And what we want to go and do. I mean, I think that transition is really, as we launched Buy House, Steve and I met 8 years ago, and as we were talking about the single family real estate market, we thought, man, something's got to change, right? The traditional brokerage model's kind of broken. If my mom and dad or any of our mom and dads are going to go and sell a house, why are they paying fees, on a property that's actually not going to extract top value because it's a little tired. So how do we approach that? In the beginning, we were advertising direct to consumer TV and radio. It was very, very expensive. To acquire something off market, to then go and renovate and bring back to market. And, that journey and that discussion naturally came back around to, hey, these brokerages are actually really pretty good businesses. I mean, those older generations trust the brokerage model. They're going to naturally go there. And so we decided to lean into that relationship, and serendipitously, we all, kind of came together. I don't know if that story is worth sharing in this episode or another time, because it's a longer story. But,
the intro.
Yeah, but I think it's it's a nice natural fit. I mean, essentially, in this podcast, our intended outcome is to help educate people and just share real world experiences. The three of the businesses that we're all running, I mean, I think our intention is to create an ecosystem where if there's a residential transaction, we can provide value.
Yeah. There's nothing we can't do right here.
And I think that's an important point in what we do. If you're going to be successful in business, you have to add value.
Yeah.
And so that's what each of our businesses certainly focus on.
Yeah, I think it's hard to define that too in some business models. Like, where does the value creation lie? And if you think back at the industry we're in now, I mean, there's typically these 7 and 10 year trends. And sometimes people get lucky because they're just in an uptrend, but value creation in our world would mean, at the brokerage level, training and developing agents to acquire, new leads or new sellers or buyers at a cheaper price, or being able to transact more volume so that their fees aren't quite as high, or providing other...
Making sure that they know how to take care of a client and be the best real estate agent that they can be for the consumer.
Sure.
Yeah, I think the same is in lending. I mean, what do you think, outside of the service component, how I mean, obviously by definition and giving somebody capital to go and renovate a property, you're creating value, but how else do you create value in that space?
From our standpoint or our borrower standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, like, as a lender, right? Like, how do you create real value in that space?
It's just being customer focused.
Yeah.
It doesn't. We're not known for having the absolute cheapest prices, but we're priced appropriately. We give great service, and so it's there's really different approaches in business that you can take. Some people try and be the cheapest. That's hard to defend that because somebody could come in and be cheaper.
It's a race to the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so our approach has been from day one is to provide a great, reliable product to our customers, and so. We're known for being reliable. If we say we're going to do something, then we do it. And so our customers, who are really, we're the last thing that they think about to a certain degree. They've got to go find a property, purchase it at an attractive price, be able to go execute on either the rehab or the construction, and then go and sell it and hope that the market hasn't changed materially from when they bought it. So, so from our standpoint, we really focus on being a lender that our customers can rely upon, and the closing of the loan is just the first step. So we're there the entire rest of the way through the construction and rehab process, and making sure that we're doing it efficiently for our customers so that they can go focus on making money.
When I ask the question of what kind of value, or is Center Street Lending providing to its customer base, actually the first thing that I think of is speed. So my experience in, buying and renovating single family real estate, the first step is always identifying which house you're going to go and take on, or which project you're going to take on. The second step is always, how do you finance it? And the speed in getting that answer generally either helps you win the deal or not, especially if it's a competitive market.
Sure.
So I view that as a huge value add, that, I don't know if every other lender really has the capacity to execute.
That's why we focus on long-term relationships with our borrowers, and so our borrowers don't have to question whether we're going to be there or not. Our loan terms don't change much. Our loan pricing obviously changes with the marketplace, but we try and be there through good cycles and bad, and we've done that for the last 14 years.
Yeah.
Been through a couple cycles then.
Yeah.
And arguably the worst time not now, but in 2010, 2011, like coming out of that?
Yeah, fortunately,
Scary.
yeah, there was, and that was really the premise was there was no, as I said, there was no institutional capital, so we were going to try and be a lender in this marketplace.
It's a scary time to launch, right? It's, there's not a lot of certainty.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one interesting thing is, I can remember, people that are in the space. Everybody always says, all the good deals are gone, and it's a it's a really tough time to go and buy.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing that since 2010.
Yeah.
So it's just about being a good business person, and knowing your numbers, and being able to go execute.
Agents see investors that they work with quite a bit, and they start to think like, hey, I mean, I should do this. Like, this isn't fair. They're making all the money, And we've had a few that, you really have to get in. You really have to be tight on your numbers, on timelines,
Speed.
on construction. And so we've had a few that came out like either, barely making it through where they didn't lose anything, but definitely didn't make anything. So it's, I think that's the purpose of talking through all of this, because it's not all sunshine and roses, right? But you learn from it, and I think both of you sitting here, I think all of us have a unique perspective that we can bring to help people be successful in that space.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the listeners, whoever they are, we assume they're agents or investors in their local markets. And, if nothing else, I mean, for every winning story that we have at Buy Buy House, we also have a loser and a sneaker. And we're happy to talk about all those, just kind of talk about the whole picture.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it too. I mean, I think this is an interesting dynamic in general. I think we all have different perspectives, and we're all in different facets of the business. But what I like about what we're creating here is a platform for real estate stories in general, because real estate can change lives, right? So I think what you're gonna see on this channel, on this forum, is just the reality, the good stories, the exciting stories, and hopefully we can. I mean, just like you want to provide value in your business, and so do I, and so do you. I think that that's our focus here as well, and providing value to agents and investors. And
I mean, that's a great thing about residential real estate. Everybody lives someplace.
Yeah.
Some people more than one place, but it's
everyone's
exciting.
got a story,
and everybody can relate to it. And sure, everybody's got a story. So it's a great fun industry.
Yeah.
I was one of the businesses I was in previously was focused in the energy space, and I sat on a panel, and that was a statement that was kind of like publicized. I said, I think that humans are going to live on the planet for a long time. Probably the next 50 to 100 years. While they live on the planet, I think they're going to continue living in houses. And when they continue living in houses, I think they're going to want them to be nice.
Yeah.
And they're going to want to be comfortable in those houses. Mm-hmm. That's the investment thesis that we're making.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that's a bold statement, though.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess ask
it
Elon.
makes sense,
Elon might think, he thinks Mars is the next stop, and we're years away. So we'll see if he's right.
Yeah.
Container houses. So we got a couple of minutes before we wrap, this conversation. Again, just an intro, and we're excited. We have a long list. When we first started talking about this project, it was like, where do we start? And are we going to even have enough to talk about? And then after we put the first outline together, my gosh, we have, hundreds of guests that we're interested in discussing unique real estate stories with. And so I'm really excited. I hope, I hope we don't overwhelm our listeners. We want to try to do something weekly or a couple times a month, depending on our schedules as we're busy. But to wrap this one, I mean, anything else that you want to provide, Suzanne, about what's happening at Innovate and what you're seeing in today's market? I mean, it's last day of January 24.
Yeah.
So we're just kicking a new year off. I know the Fed had some announcements today.
Yeah. So Fed released that they did not lower interest rates. So I was just talking to Fox News right before this, and the question on everyone's mind is it a good time to buy? Should we buy? Should we sell? What do we do? And so, interest rates are manageable right now. So I think for consumers, as the rates start dipping, we're here in California, and we really experienced the extreme with bidding wars and homes going for over ask and 200,000 over ask, and great for sellers. But the cool thing about where the market is right now is rates are manageable. They're not historically low like a few years ago, but in the fives. It's okay. So it's affordable, but also there's still not enough inventory on the market, and there's not going to be anytime soon. So what I think is interesting about right now at this moment, it's actually a good time for both sellers and buyers, where if interest rates tick down a few more notches, buyers are going back to the bidding wars and paying a little bit more for that asset.
Yeah, and it definitely feels like there's a lot more people out looking.
It was a ghost town.
Since the end of the year, right?
Q4 ghost town,
Sure.
But we're already. Inventory's moving pretty quickly now. We're seeing buyers back in the mix, so I think it's to answer the question. The time is now. Yeah,
interesting. How about you, Steve, on the lending side? Any big news or any changes or things that our listeners should be thinking about?
No, it's the markets are pretty stable. The people that we're seeing a large number of people that typically are focused on ground up, because that would have been people that in the past may have gotten financing from smaller banks,
regionals,
regional banks, and we are seeing a pullback from them. Yeah. So we're seeing a dramatic increase in demand on ground up construction.
And that just happens because the regionals, had either gone under or
it's a couple of factors, right? So the environment is larger builders and national public builders weathered last year pretty easily with rate buy downs for the most part. So they were moving product, and for smaller builders, that's harder to do. Now, as rates are moderating and people are coming back, people are looking to go and start new construction and have inventory to be able to go sell into an improving market. So I think overall, the vast majority of people think that rates are going to be coming down. Certainly the short end of the curve is going to be coming down as the Fed starts moving the Fed funds rate down. And we also think the economy is probably going to slow down a little bit. So you should start to see mortgage rates, continue their decline.
Peel back a little.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a strong argument that, rates at 5.5% or 6% are actually really good and stable for single-family real estate. I think what we could be experiencing over the last 12 months is just like some kind of exaggerated emotion from like historically unrealistically low rates, like a 2.5% interest rate, like that's never going to happen
not normal
again. I don't even think it's healthy for a market.
No.
I'm not an economist and I don't understand the full macro picture, but that seems unrealistic. So
well, we have a lot to dig into
exciting
in the future, so stay tuned.
Thank you
until
for your
next
show.
time.
Perfect. That is a wrap.